I travel. I travel a lot for business. And travel can be fun. You get to see the world. My first time in Sweden, by the way. Travel can be daunting, too. You get to miss the family. I know I do. And they miss me when I'm gone. And this is me in an API t-shirt, by the way, a couple of years ago. We who travel for business often speak about how much we travel in percentage points. I'm not sure if you do in Sweden, we do in US a lot. We say, I travel 25%, or I travel 50%. We use this language in employment contracts and offer letters when we have our employees or to-be employees, and we want them to travel for us. There's one thing I learned recently about this indicator that I want to share with you guys. I realized that the formula that I am using is not necessarily the same that the formula that my boss will use or the formula that the person who likes spending their time with me is using. Let me ask you a question. Can a person travel more than 100%? I'll give you an example to think about. There's the month of September. In US, because of how perfectly weekends were lined up, plus one holiday on September 3rd, we had 19 working days out of 30 calendar days. So if I went to, let's say, Australia, and I traveled the entire month from day 1 till day 30, and if you ask my wife how much I traveled that month, she'll tell you two things. First, I was crazy enough to having agreed to do so. And second, I traveled 30 out of 19 possible business days to travel. That's a whooping 157%. I'm sure you guys confused why I'm telling you all this. It'll make sense in just one moment, okay? I have ideas often going through my head about building stuff and experiences that either don't exist or I don't know if they exist. Very few stick around long enough to become a side project. TravelWhelm did. And while I'm showing you this, if you're curious, you can go to travelwhelm.com. You'll see everything I'm going to show you today. That's live. It's up. It's working, more or less. TravelWhelm allows me, and can allow you too, to track how much you travel, and also gives you an idea how much people around you think you travel. But the more important thing is it comes in 3 flavors. It's a website. It has an Alexa skill, and I'll talk to the lady when I'm ready for it. You also can text to TravelWhelm on your phone, so that's a little chatbot also there that allows you to do the same thing. And I came here to explore how I built it, why I built it the way I did, and talk about natural language API that is behind this. And you'll see me do this, and you'll see me show you why and how. If you want to know more about me, you'll find me at pveller.com. I'm a CTO of digital technology at EPAM Systems. Want to know more about us? You'll find us too at epam.com. And I'm at pveller.com. And with that, let's take a look at TravelWhelm and why I am here and what it is. So I'm going to go out of PowerPoint. I'm going to give you some live demo. That should be fun for a conference. And if something doesn't work, it's not me, it's internet. When I log in, and I've logged in before when I was testing, so I do get my travel stats. And I can update and put some dates as the days that I traveled, and as I do so, it'll change my stats. Now, I can do it hands-free, too. I can say, Alexa, tell TravelWhelm that I'm at conference today.
I have updated your travel calendar.
Did you guys see it? OK. Now, what happens when what I do first thing when I learn that I am going to be somewhere? I usually text my wife, because she needs to know we have kids. She needs to know the travel family schedule. I can now also text my website, and I'm going to show you that too. Please don't read my text. I heard some Russian language in the audience, so those can recognize some of those. But what I'm going to do, I am going to text at TravelWhelm. I need to spell it correctly first. Right there. And I'm going to say that I am going to be, which is true, in Amsterdam tomorrow. All right, let's see what happens with tomorrow. Come on. Come on. What about tomorrow? It didn't show. How about I'll do it again? It should be in New York. Oh, New York. Last Thursday. There we go. Let's try this one. Yeah, well, that worked. Maybe tomorrow and time zone differences confuses my algorithm or anything. Anyway, so now you have the idea what it does, OK? So when I was building TravelWell, I had some decisions to make. Programming languages, where it should run, how it should talk to a database, what kind of database should I use, how should I do the whatever you guys saw, WebSockets over anything. And there are many decisions we make. Lots of them were easy for me this time. And I can talk at length about serverless, how I did authentication, back to the keynotes in the morning today. That's all awesome topics, but I didn't come to talk about that today. I came to talk about one specific decision that I made, which was to build a natural language API. Now, you saw me talking to an Echo device, which does speech-to-text, and then text travels, and that's the interface, right? You saw me texting, which is clearly text going through Twilio to my API. It's also text. You did see me using the web. I didn't show you what happened behind the scenes. Let me do that first. For those engineers and geeks, you're going to like it. I'm sure you would want me to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what travels on the wire as I'm changing my calendar. So pay attention. I am going to, I am going to be in Amsterdam tomorrow. So that's going to be, now look what, not there. I'm going to get there later. So look at what actually traveled in my body to my API endpoint. Right? That's an English sentence I created, or the website created, to indicate what date it wanted to mark as traveled. So everything that goes to an API right now is text. When we do something like this, we're really doing what's known as natural language understanding. For those of us who worked with it a little bit, we know that there's not much understanding really happening, especially if you're using statistical models to train how you understand the language. In modern, what I'd say, commoditized technology that works with text to do NLU, we really do two things. And I'll illustrate on the example. We do intent detection, and we do named entity recognition. So here's the example. Imagine you guys are building, as a developer, you're building an almighty digital assistant that will schedule meetings and make phone calls. They're two different things, like enough to be different. So, and then you speak to that assistant saying, hey, schedule me a meeting with Robert tomorrow at 2 p.m. So to know what to do, first thing first, we need to understand your intent. And likely through training samples, whatever you do, I'm not going to go into machine learning models or symbolic models, that thing will signal that it's about scheduling. So you know the intent, schedule a meeting. But that's not enough yet to fulfill that intent. You need to know who to schedule it with, what date, and what time. So those three green things are entities you're going to extract out of what I said. Now, given two, scheduling, and three details, you can go call an API for Google Calendar, schedule a meeting. Hopefully you know who Robert is. But that's the idea, with intent and entities, right? So I needed to do the same thing. My API needed to detect the intent and then extract the entities to be able to fulfill it, meaning call an API to make database, put some record in there that I'm traveling or not traveling. In TravelWell, I'm sorry, there's only two things I need to understand as far as intents go. It's also binary. I either mark dates as traveled, or I might mark them as not traveled. That's it. That's all I do. There's nothing else my API understands as far as language goes. When I solve problems with technology, and I hope you guys do the same thing, first thing I try is the easiest thing that works. And maybe it'll stay, because that's going to be less bugs, less changes. It just works, and it keeps working. So guess what helped me do the intent detection for this API? And what was the simplest thing that I could use? It was a simple regular expression. Amazingly, as I try to build language sentences to speak to my API, every time I talk about things that will happen or have happened, I'm not going to use any of the negative things that you see in this regex. And conversely, when I say about, hey, things got canceled, or I'm not traveling, or I'm not going to, I'm going to use one of those. So it was easy for my case to detect whether it's a positive or a negative intent. So out of two, one down, one to go, I need to still deal with entities, which in my case are dates. I had two conflicting thoughts coming into it. I thought, well, I cannot be the first guy who is doing a date recognition out of English or any other language. There's got to be libraries, frameworks, APIs I can use and just be done with it. But then I also thought that, hey, I was at conferences and I saw startups talk about how they build businesses and secure investments on top of understanding dates. X.AI, for example, they do scheduling assistant. And literally all they do, they do lots of other things, but they have to be really good at understanding dates to schedule the right things at the right time and not doing it wrongly. So there's got to be some nuances. But anyway, I went to searched for libraries, and I found few, and I built my set of test cases for what I wanted them to be able to understand. And I quickly stumbled on things that I just couldn't get them to, give me the dates for. And I tried, I'm not going to bore you with the list of things I tried, but I tried Stanford NLP, I tried Google ML API, I tried some libraries that I can just download from my Node.js or even Python. I even thought about changing languages. I'll give you 2 examples. So I am here, not all 3 days, but anyway. So when you take this sentence and use any of those off-the-shelf NLP libraries, guess how many dates? Well, you guys see 3 dates in there, right? How many dates you'll get out of an API? You'll get 1. And that's an easy one. That's an easy pattern to detect. It's a month followed by a date. Everybody will probably has a pattern like that matching. Boom, off you go. These 2 will come back as numbers. Like if let's say Google's Dialogflow, their API.ai acquisition. If you build a chatbot on it, you send this, they have built-in dates, numbers. You'll get a date and 2 ordinary numbers. And the challenge here is how to connect the month predicate on the first date to the second and the third. And whose job is it, your or the API that you want to extract dates out of? A little more subtle example that also didn't work. I was in San Francisco this past Tuesday and Wednesday. The difficult thing here is this past. If I said, well, Tuesday, today's Tuesday, let's say Monday. If I say last Monday to you, you'll likely ask me, which Monday did you mean? Do you mean this one last Monday or Monday from last week? The way we say it in the US, last Monday typically referred to the Monday of the last week all the way back. So this past helps me disambiguate which date I mean, but for a library, it's kind of a conflicting this present, past, but also same problem with connecting the predicate of first date of the week to the second one. Anyway, it all comes down to, for these libraries, how many assumptions they want to make or willing to make, how much they will want to assume for you that that means a date versus that means not a date. And also, we know how, we build projects, we build software, that's why we're here. Making assumptions can be a dangerous game. You can make a wrong one, you didn't validate it, boom, that's a mistake. Everybody's pissed because you didn't do the right thing. As an engineer, if I have a point A, and I need to be in point B, and I have 10 bikes, I tried all 10, none of them work, so none of them works to my liking, what do? I build my own, right? I mean, I have to get to point B. There's got to be a bike that works. So I build my own, and it's a little tiny library that does better job of recognizing the dates I wanted it to recognize. It's called a Rollo. I'm not advertising it because it comes with its own things, and I'll talk about them in a second. And I explicitly say that it's an aggressive parser, and I'll show you the aggressiveness, designed to work on sentences that are known to contain dates. Now, I know how to fix it and what to do, but I didn't want to. I wanted to show you an example. So here's watch closely what's going to happen now. Come on. I am going to get back here. We don't need this. So watch at this number 10 right there. So I'm going to say, Alexa, tell Travelwell that I bought 10 shirts in October. That didn't work this time. You know what I'm going to do? I know that thing works. I still have time. That's all. Live demos are always hard. I'm going to do it here. I purchased. It's going to be the same thing. 10 shirts. It's same API in October. So how many dates you see in that sentence? None, right? Well, guess what? There's enough tokens in that date. There should be. Anyway, guys, trust me, what should have happened? Well, it's actually good. What should have happened, and I promised I didn't update it. I know what I wanted to do, but I didn't. What should have happened, it should have highlighted the 10 as a date. It's funny. The thing is, in that library that I built, I didn't, in the version that I'm using, there is no relationship detection. There is no attempt to understand whether that was a date. I'm computing what looks like a date to be a date if I can. So I'm making lots of assumptions. I'm allowing the library to make lots of assumptions because I wanted it to understand, lots of different natural sentences. And here's the other thought. So I built the NLP API, right? My API understands English, at least coming in. What I did show you and you did see it when I first time opened my inspector in the browser. Let me go back here. When I did this, you saw that what travels on the wire is an English sentence. But you also saw, at least those of you who paid attention, that what came back was a JSON, right? It wasn't in English. So it's not exactly an English-speaking API if it speaks JSON back. And there's a reason for it, too. Because this is actually straight out of the JSON, I believe, JSON.org or JSON.something that defines what JSON was. Being a language-independent data format, yada yada. The thing is, I can build an API that speaks English, or at least a little bit of English to understand what I wanted it to understand. What if you don't tell me exact data? What if you say that I am traveling on Tuesday, and that's all you say? And I'm not going to make an assumption that that's this Tuesday, right? Especially if today is Wednesday. I have to ask you which one you mean. This Tuesday, last Tuesday. I'm missing a month direction, or I'm missing a week direction. No, I know what I'm missing. How do I communicate to you the error? Do I speak English back to you as an API? Then what? You'll have to then do your own natural language understanding, and every consumer who is consuming my API will have to do the same. So the moment I start speaking back, that moment, I'm assuming every consumer will do their own natural language understanding to understand my language. If I start telling you what exactly I can tell you back, guess what? We're defining a protocol. Then how better that is than using JSON, because that's everybody knows what to do with JSON versus parsing my own strings. And at that moment, I thought, you know what, that's a nice experiment, and maybe at some point in time, and hopefully soon enough, based on how technology progresses, we will be able to do a lot better at language understanding versus just making sense of it, and maybe systems will be able to talk to one another. But right now, I guess I'm going to give you guys two things as a result of my experiment, building TravelWell and playing with NLU API. By the way, building that little role library and playing with it took more time than building everything around it. Everything you've seen in the cloud with WebSockets over IoT Hub. Anyway, all of that took less than playing with understanding dates. So I'll say this. I'll say that, one, named entity recognition is not easy. And you can look at different, if you guys dealing with this, you'll see places, locations, because those are lookups by, city names, country names. Those are easy to get out. Dates are clearly a lot harder, especially if you want to get a variety of ways we humans express dates. Any other business-specific entity, especially when you get to multi-word, things that are not expressed by a single word that you can look up from somewhere, will be harder to recognize, or at least harder to train for, or you'll need specific training for it. And also, like I said, everybody will need to do natural language understanding in order for your API to be natural language first. And I guess that's what I'm going to leave you with. Thank you.